Did you know if you purchase a home in Palm Beach County, you may have to carry 3 different kinds of insurance? Look, I understand this topic is boring, but it's important to understand. Those 3 kinds of insurance are homeowners, windstorm, and flood. Today we're going to talk about flood insurance. So why is this important? Look, insurance premiums have skyrocketed across Palm Beach County the last handful of years. If you don't research this, you can get hit with a monthly bill that you just weren't budgeting for. When somebody's looking at a property in Palm Beach County, rightly so, they often ask me, is it in a flood zone? The answer is all the properties in Palm Beach County are in a flood zone. It just depends if you're in a low, moderate, or high-risk flood zone. Now, it's not only buying a home. People who have owned a home in Palm Beach County for years suddenly found out they were in a flood zone a couple of years ago when FEMA expanded the maps. And a big note here, damage to your home from floods are not covered by your homeowner's insurance policy. All right, let's walk through some of this. Please be aware, if you have a federally backed mortgage, you'll be required to purchase flood insurance if the property is in a high-risk area. So keep that in mind as we kind of go through this here. So the moderate to low risk areas, which flood insurance is not required but recommended, are going to be zones B, C, and X. These are flood zones with less than a 1% chance of flooding each year. The high risk areas, this is where flood insurance is mandatory. Again, if there's a lender involved, not if you own it for cash. These are zones A, AE, A1 to A30, AH, and AO. These areas have a 1% chance of annual flooding and a 26% chance of flooding over a 30-year period. And high-risk coastal areas. These are going to be your super expensive policies, right? Coastal areas are the 1% chance or greater of flooding annually and subject to the additional hazard of storm waves, or as we say, storm surge. Also has a 26% chance of flooding over 30 years. So if you are considering buying a property in South Florida, whether that's Miami-Dade, Broward, or Palm Beach County, you cannot avoid thinking about flood risk. But the flood risk is different in each of those counties. All right, let's start down in Miami-Dade first. Think about Miami, right? It's built out. It's heavily urbanized, meaning there's asphalt everywhere. So when a lot of rain happens, there's not a lot of natural ground to absorb all that water, right? Plus you have sea level pressure down there. You also have a lot of older homes that were built in Miami as compared to the further up the coast that you go. That meant they were built at times where the zoning codes weren't as strict. And what I mean by zoning codes is you didn't have to build at specific heights over the center of the road like you do now. So those lots may be at or below the ground level. There's a lot of coastal areas that end up in the VE zone or the highest risk category zone for flooding in Miami-Dade. So you put all this stuff together and it's going to have the highest average flood insurance premium of the Tri-County area. Let's skip up a county to Broward County. So you have a mix of, the intracoastal and the older canals plus some low-lying neighborhoods. For those of you that haven't driven through a lot of Lauderdale, the intracoastal is awfully close, 3 feet off usually, from where it can just spill over onto people's yards and it gets over the seawalls. Plus, again, low-lying neighborhoods. So flooding is common in heavy rains. I mean, just Google the news stories on some of that stuff for Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood. So look, there are some inland areas of Broward County. So it's not quite as geographically constrained as Miami-Dade. As you get further inland, you're going to get more space, if you will, and that space, less asphalt, more space for the land to absorb the rain as it comes in and the floodwaters if they reach there. So look, your insurance costs are going to be high, but they're going to be lower than Miami-Dade. Finally, Palm Beach County. Think about Palm Beach County, right? Larger land area, more inland options as compared to Broward and Miami-Dade. Here's the big kicker to it. A lot of newer construction in Palm Beach County. Zoning code now, you can't build at ground level. My house, I think we're 4.5 or 5 feet off the center of the road. It looks like it's built on a mountain. So you're now having to build in the newer areas way above ground level, which means a lower risk of flooding. So the newer construction stuff, gonna have a lower risk of flooding just based on the elevation of the house. There's a whole lot of single family neighborhoods in Palm Beach County in Zone X, which while you're still in a flood zone, you should not have a requirement from your lender to obtain flood insurance. So all these things kind of combine together to show you that the premiums in Palm Beach County are going to be lower as compared to Broward and Miami-Dade. I'm not talking about just finding a one-off property and saying, well, this property's in Broward, it has a lower, premium than the waterfront property in Palm Beach County. I'm saying if you take everything on the whole, premiums in Palm Beach County are lower than they are in Broward or Miami-Dade. Again, Miami-Dade being the highest. So flood risk is real. Not to turn this into a cheerleading video from Palm Beach County, but I'm going to. Palm Beach County costs in flood insurance are going to be lower than Broward or Miami-Dade. One more reason to choose Palm Beach County. The worst mistake you can make is overpaying when you buy or selling for less than your property's true value. My clients avoid those mistakes. Give me a call, 786-443-7203. You can email me. I'll leave a contact form in the description down below. Talking to me is always best, so don't be shy. Pick up the phone, give me a call. But one way or another, get in touch with me. Let's talk about some real estate in Palm Beach County.